Alright, so I've returned all of those master cylinders and clutch cylinders to AutoZone that I was just showing you guys. And as we discussed, kind of narrowed my search or my possible, solutions for the Legend clutch system down to a couple of options. So here we have rebuilt OEM Legend master and slave cylinders. Here we have a Prelude. Again, I purchased for a 97 Prelude, but there's going to be a year range that all use the same, model number. But Prelude, master, and slave cylinders. And then we have our rebuild kits here. So like I said, I finished rebuilding these two. The two back here in the back are also Legend specific. I just haven't rebuilt them yet. So, earlier in the video, I was showing you this honing tool. This honing tool, like I said, got on Amazon. It worked pretty well for the master cylinders. It's a smaller diameter bore, a 5/8. And so this worked pretty well. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this with the lighting. But the inside of that cylinder there is pretty much as smooth as I can get it using that tool. This tool did not work very well for the slave cylinder because this is a little bit larger of a bore. Again, this is a 3/4 inch bore, and there just wasn't quite enough tension or spring back, on these things here to get a good cleaning. So I went back on Amazon and started looking around, and I found this cylinder tool, honing tool, and purchased it. And just to show you guys real quick, this is a Flex Hone 3/4 inch diameter honing tool. This is a 320 grit. I think they make them in different grits. If you were doing this yourself at home, maybe try to get a higher grit here. You'd probably get a smoother finish. Potentially you might have to buy two. Get one with this lower grit number to get the, to start cleaning and honing the cylinder walls, and get them mostly smooth, and then get a higher grit to get that nice polished finish. And I'll show you why I say that here in a minute. But I finished doing that to both of these. And based on everything I talked about before, the rebuild kits, to be honest with you, I wouldn't waste your money on them. You can get cheap Prelude master and slave cylinders on RockAuto for almost the same cost as these rebuild kits. And the components that come in here are, from what I showed you earlier, are a better fit or a better replacement for what's supposed to be in here. So just my recommendation, just avoid the rebuild kits. So what I did for both of these is I bought a separate Prelude master cylinder, popped the piston out, that whole piston and spring assembly. I popped that out of here and put it in my Legend one. And then I reused the Legend push rod and the Legend clevis here. So rebuilt this one so it's basically exactly like OEM. With the Legend slave cylinder, same thing. I bought just a cheap or a cheaper, this one's actually one of the more expensive ones I think on RockAuto, but you know, bought a Prelude slave cylinder, took the internals out. I used the piston from the Prelude. I reused the spring from the Legend because the spring is a little bit, like I showed you earlier, a little bit more robust. Put those in here, and I used the this push rod and the cover from the Prelude. So these are nice and new. So again, got my rebuilt options here. And as I actuate these guys, you can't tell in the video, but I can feel that there's a little bit of resistance in both of these. They both work. I think if you were doing this yourself, once you put this all back together, hook the clutch line up between the two and fill it with the brake fluid, you probably have a little bit more lubricant in there than what I have. I just used a very, very little bit of brake fluid as lubricant to rebuild it, but didn't want to fill it up because then you're going to have fluid coming out of the ports here. So maybe once the system's filled up, it won't feel quite so sandpaper like, but the reality is, as hard as I've tried, and I've done a lot of work here, spent a lot of money, and tried my absolute best to rebuild these things, and the inside of these cylinders are just not quite as smooth. You can even feel it with your finger. Just not quite as smooth as if you buy a Prelude one online and you feel inside. I mean, this is smooth as glass inside, and that still feels like a little bit of sandpaper. So that could potentially have an effect on the functionality of these guys. So is it doable? Yes, it's doable. Would it work? Probably. But I think for my purposes at least, I don't think I'm going to reinstall these. I'm going to put them in my parts cabinet and just save them for later if I do need them. So since I'm not going to use these, let's shift our attention to some your other options. So again, we've already discussed, people use the Prelude slave cylinder. The mounting tabs are at a different angle. The body is going to be at an angle relative to that clutch fork, but people use them. They say it works fine. So if you want to go that route, go that route. Buy one of these on RockAuto. They might even make them new still by Honda, I'm not sure. Buy one of these, bolt it up if you want. Now with the Prelude master cylinder, there is potential to use it. So I have mounted this up in the car. Sorry, I'm trying to prop this up a little bit on a screw here. I've mounted this up in my car. Again, I've got a coupe. I cannot verify that this works also in a sedan. There might be slight differences between the distance between the where this mounts to the firewall and where there's the fender well inside the engine bay comes up. But in a coupe, this will mount this body, as I've shown you before. The body of the Prelude master cylinder is a little bit longer than the Legend one, and this will physically fit in the coupe engine bay. So, could we use it? Yes, you can use it. It's the same diameter, bore diameter. It's the same stroke length. It bolts up. It fits in the engine bay. There's a few modifications that you're going to have to make if you want to use this, though. Number one, because of where the body is bigger back here, your evap canister. The evap canister that goes in the Legend, it is now going to be too big. because the evap canister inside the engine bay, it kind of sits right here, you know, above the back of the master cylinder, and this kind of gets in the way on the Prelude. So you're gonna have to figure out something to do with this. You could maybe relocate it. We've been talking with some other guys in the Legend group. I think that, you know, if someone is good at 3D modeling and wants to 3D print, you could probably print a sort of a triangular shaped bracket here that would basically change this. Instead of being mounted, you know, at this angle, you could probably mount it a little bit more laid down, and if it's laid down enough, it's going to miss the top of that. So that's an option. But I've also found a smaller evap canister that Honda made, and I'm going to get into more details about that later. So just keep in mind, you're going to have to do something about the evap canister if you use the Prelude. The other thing that you're going to have to sort of customize is, if you look here, again, I'm trying to get this to sort of sit at an angle here. All right. So if we look at this closely, we move our Legend one over next to it. Okay, both of these, I've got the clevis here, you know, kind of fully extended on the push rod. And as you can see, from where this hits the firewall, where this mounts to the firewall, to where this is going to have to hit the clutch pedal, the Legend one is slightly longer. It's about, you know, maybe a ½ inch or so longer. So what that means is, if you install the Prelude one in your car, this is not going to reach the clutch pedal. But I have figured out a solution for this. What I would do, if you were going to use this master cylinder, is I would remove this push rod, remove the one from the Prelude, and I would install the Legend one. So this is the Legend push rod. It came out of my this other one. I would put this in here, okay, and then you're gonna want this clevis, you know, to be here. So basically, we've got to fill this gap. It's about a 1 inch gap or so, maybe just over 1 inch. So in order to fill that gap, what you're going to need to get is a coupling nut and a little short section of threaded rod. So the thread pitch on this right here is a M8 by 1.25 thread pitch, and I found on McMaster-Car, let's see here, let me adjust the camera. On McMaster-Car, they have a M8 by 1.25 coupling nut, and this is part number, let me zoom in for you, 93590A107. It costs $1.91. So order one of these, and then also we've got a M8 by 1.25 threaded rod that's about 1 inch long, and this is going to be part number 99067A112 at $3.17. So if you order both of those, the coupling nut and this short little threaded rod, and you come back over here, zoom out a little bit, you put that coupling nut on the end of the Legend push rod, and then that short 1 inch threaded rod, and it'll fill this gap. And so basically, by doing that, you can make a push rod using a couple different parts that's the right length, that'll basically get this clevis the right distance from this firewall flange. So you'll be able to install it in your car. You'll be able to get it to reach the clutch pedal. And again, that modification is needed, the evap canister modification, and then also due to the location of where the clutch line connects, you're no longer going to be able to use your factory Legend hard lines. So you're going to have to go with the aftermarket Paragon Performance braided line. But it'll, it'll connect to this, and it'll connect down to your Prelude or Legend slave cylinders. So that's kind of your two options if you want to go cheap. If you want to just buy something from RockAuto and put it in and use it, that's going to be your cheapest option. Either rebuilding your Legend or getting the Prelude components and doing a couple little modifications to be able to use this in your car. But while I was researching all of this, I decided, hey, if a Prelude master cylinder could theoretically work, again with a few modifications, then I started thinking to myself, I wonder if there's any upgrades, if any Prelude guys or Integra owners, or as we talked about before, S2000 components will bolt up. I wonder if there's any upgrades. And I actually, as I was doing some research, I came across something pretty cool. So let me rearrange the workbench here, and I want to show you what I think is going to be a fantastic solution. Not tested yet, but I'm very, very close to testing it, and so I'm going to go ahead and sort of talk through this option with you. So here we have my potential solution. Now I'm filming this video in real time. I have not hooked this up to the car yet. I have not verified that this works, but I've done some math, and I've done test fitting of all the parts. I know all the parts fit, and the math says it should work, and I'm going to show all that to you, here shortly. But basically, from all the research I had done, finding out that Prelude and Integra and Civic master cylinders, they all bolted up to the Legend firewall because this flange is the same. I got to thinking, well, I wonder if there's any upgrades, any performance upgrades, something better than a $20 RockAuto part. And so what I first did was I started searching the internet, and I found a site, a company called Chase Bays, and they make a clutch master cylinder adapter bracket, and for the Civic, the Integra, and the S2000. And along with this bracket, they sell basically an updated master cylinder. And this updated or upgraded master cylinder is made by Tilton Engineering. So that's like a race car part company. And so this got me thinking, well, if this works for an Integra, a Civic, and an S2000, why couldn't it work for a Legend? Basically, I went down the path of sort of piecing together a kit like this. Again, once I get into the math behind this, you'll understand why I couldn't just order the master cylinder from Tilton. Basically, from Chase Bays. So basically, their options here are a 5/8 diameter, excuse me, a 5/8 diameter master cylinder, which is equal to the stock Legend and Prelude, equal diameter to the stock Legend and Prelude master. And they also order a 3/4 inch size. My guess is, based on my previous research, because the S2000 slave cylinder is a larger diameter, I'm guessing on the S2000 that the 0.75 inch or the 3/4 inch master cylinder is probably the factory diameter for that one. So that's probably why they offer those two sizes. And again, in just a minute I'll get into the math, but basically neither one of those sizes, in my opinion, is the right size for using on the Legend. So again, I just basically came on here and ordered the adapter plate, and you know, in reading the description down below, I found out that the master cylinder that they sell with this is the Tilton 76 series master cylinder. And when I went to Tilton's website, I found that in addition to that 5/8 diameter and the 3/4 inch diameter, they sell these other sizes, 7/10 and larger. And so again, with using math, which I'll show you in a minute again, I determined that the 7/10 diameter is probably the best one for the Legend application. So I went, you can't purchase directly from Tilton's website, but they have, you know, various online dealers and stuff that you can purchase from. If I select 7/10, you can see the part number there is a 76-700. I purchased mine from Amazon just so it was quick shipping, but I do think there's some other websites out there that have it a little bit cheaper. But it's about in that $140 range for this master cylinder. Again, then you got to buy the $70 adapter bracket. So coming back over here to my workbench, the path that I'm going down, because this is available, the adapter bracket and this master cylinder is available in different sizes, and also based on my you know, research and what I was talking about earlier about how the S2000 slave cylinder bolts up to the Legend transmission better. It, you know, again, it mounts up at the same angle relative to the transmission as the Legend one. I decided that this was the path I wanted to go down. So what I'm going to talk about now is I'm going to show you the math behind it. I'm going to show you all the parts and pieces that are needed to make this work. Again, I haven't tested it yet. That's going to be here in the next couple days. I'm going to install all this, test drive the car, and, you know, obviously I'll report back towards the end of this video and let you know if this worked. But 7/10 diameter Tilton master cylinder, chase bays, adapter bracket. This is an OEM Honda S2000, still brand new, slave cylinder. Of course, if you want to save some money, you could get aftermarket ones on RockAuto or whatever. But, you know, I think most Legend owners, if they could, if it was possible, they would probably want to get a brand new OEM master cylinder and a brand new OEM slave cylinder. Unfortunately, that's not available. So I wanted to come up with something that was still, you know, Honda manufactured as far as the slave cylinder goes, or you know, a very quality aftermarket product from a reputable company as far as the master cylinder goes. So basically, to piece together the kit like Chase Bays sells, I needed to get a couple parts, because again, if you order this from Chase Bays in the smaller or larger size, it comes with all the fittings that you need. But because I didn't order this master from Chase Bays, I had to piece together the kit. So in working with Chase Bays, let me back up. Chase Bays also sells stainless steel clutch lines. There we go. Chase Bays. There we go. So I reached out to them because they sell one that is specific to the S2000, meaning it bolts up to the S2000 slave cylinder, and it bolts up to this Tilton master cylinder. So I reached out to them asking them what the length of that line was to kind of make sure it would be long enough for the Legend application. Oddly enough, they wouldn't tell me the exact length of it, but I told them kind of the length that I needed, and long story short, after some back and forth, they told me to order their stainless steel clutch line that on their website is listed for the Nissan 350Z or the G35. It has the same fittings on the end of it as the S2000 line. It's just a little bit longer, so it'll work better for the Legend application. So I've got a stainless steel clutch line, and it's going to bolt directly up to the master and the slave cylinder here. Now the one caveat here is when they sell this line with the same Banjo bolt on each end of it. Hold on, I'm taking off the cap here. So the end of these lines are Banjo fittings and Banjo bolts for both connections to both the master and the slave. If you just purchase this off their website and don't do anything else, it's going to come with 2 Banjo bolts that are both the same thread pitch and thread diameter, which is an M10 by 1.0, if I remember correctly. Now the Tilton master cylinder, which you can find on their website, both Tilton's website and Chase Bay's website, the connection here where the clutch line goes is a standard size instead of a metric size. Chase Bays sells, if you buy their kit comes with the correct Banjo bolt with the thread pitch for that. So I just emailed them after I made the purchase and asked for them to include the correct Banjo bolt to connect to the Tilton master cylinder on the one end. And it still has the M10 by 1.0 Banjo bolt to connect to the S2000 slave cylinder. So I've got my clutch line to connect the two. This is, I've already got this, if y'all haven't noticed already, I've already got the Chase Bays adapter plate connected to the Tilton master cylinder here. And then basically what you need, again, I'll move the Legend one over. And again, just like we were talking about on the Prelude option, we need to extend this threaded piece to go down here and make this clevis that connects to the clutch pedal the same distance from this flange that as the Legend one. We want these to match the distances here. Also, the thread on this right here, this push rod, is a standard thread pitch. This is a metric thread pitch. I can't remember off the top of my head what the numbers are, but I'll include all this information, down below. But long story short, went on to McMaster Car again, and they make this thread adapter. So this thread adapter is the perfect length so that you'll be able to thread this onto the Tilton master cylinder, and then take the OEM, the stock Legend clevis, and thread it on to it. And you obviously by adjusting by turning the threads, you can make this length the same. You can make it match. So step 1 or 2, however you're counting, would be to buy this thread adapter to make this the right length. Now, if you look back at the OEM Legend or any of the Prelude or any of them, it has this nut back here that you screw down to kind of lock this in place so it doesn't spin or, you know, come undone while you're driving the car. So I went to the hardware store and I got this little flange nut to do the same thing. So if I take this off and I put the flange nut on here and put this thread adapter back. So this will, again, it'll allow me to adjust this to be the right length. And then once it's adjusted, I can lock this nut down. So functionality wise, it's the exact same as your you know, factory OEM Legend one. We've already talked about the Banjo bolt to connect the clutch line to this. Now, the last thing we need to do is be able to connect the OEM fluid reservoir and hose to the fill port here. So again, went online. This is a different thread pitch. The information's online. I will also include information down below the video, but went and found on Amazon, got a stainless steel Banjo bolt that's the right threads. It came with the copper washers, and I bought a Banjo fitting with a hose barb on the end. So obviously I put the washers on here when I install it, but you know, essentially that's going to go on here, tighten it down, and we're going to be able to hook up the OEM reservoir to this guy. So everything, you've got all the parts and pieces to connect everything together. No modifications are needed to the car. Everything, once you get these different fittings and parts and pieces, this should all just be bolt up, you know, bolted in and bleed the system and ready to go. Let's see, what else am I forgetting? Let me pause the video real fast and pull up the math behind all this. Let me show that to y'all. Okay, here's my spreadsheet that I created with kind of the math and the reason why I went with the 7/10 diameter master cylinder to pair with the S2000 slave cylinder. Of course, you can pause this at any time to read this in more detail, but basically we have the Legend. The problem that I'm considering it a problem is the Legend master cylinder has this diameter piston with this stroke, so it moves this much volume. The Legend slave cylinder has this diameter piston. And so basically, if you're pushing the clutch pedal all the way down and it's utilizing the full stroke of the master cylinder, it's going to push this part of the slave cylinder a maximum of 0.763 inches. So if you leave the Legend master cylinder the same, if you don't change it out, and you put a larger diameter bore slave cylinder on there, it's only going to, this is just hydraulic calculations, basic calculations, it's only going to push the push rod on the S2000 slave cylinder a 0.649 inches. So that's a difference of 0.117. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. There is a chance you could put the S2000 slave cylinder in there and pair it with the Legend Master or a Prelude Master or anything like that, and it might work just fine. but I didn't want to find out. I didn't want to do all this work and it not fully disengage the clutch because there wasn't enough travel in the slave cylinder. So again, when I found the Tilton master cylinder with a diameter of 0.7, it's got the same 1.1 inch stroke. You can find that on their data sheet. Basically, if you pair that with the S2000 slave cylinder, it's going to move that push rod on the slave cylinder 0.811. So we compare that 0.811 with the original calculated Legend one, 0.76. And basically, with this master cylinder paired with the slave cylinder, it's going to push that push rod a little bit more, 0.047 of an inch. That's tiny, minuscule difference, but it's mathematically it's more, so it's guaranteed to work. It's guaranteed to fully disengage the clutch. And just to kind of back up these numbers, and you know, kind of prove that we're not changing the overall hydraulics behind the system. We're not going to change the pedal feel. We're not going to change, you know, the pedal's not going to feel heavier. We're not going to have a shorter stroke as far as where the engagement point is on your pedal. The ratio between the Legend Master and the Legend Slave Cylinder is 0.83. The ratio between the Tilton and the S2000 Master and Slave is 0.85. So very, very, very close. And then kind of calculated a different way, the piston increase when you switch from a Legend master cylinder to the Tilton master cylinder, you're increasing the piston diameter, the surface area, by 7.8%. And similarly, when you change from the Legend slave cylinder to the S2000 slave cylinder, you're increasing that piston surface area by 7.9%. So that increase is nearly identical. The ratio is nearly identical. So, you know, mathematically, you know, this should be a perfect match, and should not change, really shouldn't change the engagement point. It shouldn't change the pedal feel, nothing. It should be a really, really great combination of quality products to work for the Legend. You know, again, if you were to stick with the Legend master cylinder and go with a larger S2000 slave cylinder, now the ratios are gonna change, you know, more significantly. The surface area is going to change more significantly, or the difference is going to be more significant, and that would potentially change the pedal feel. You might have a little bit lighter of a pedal, and you may not be able to fully disengage the clutch when you push the pedal. But it might be worth someone, you know, trying it just to see. But again, for me, I wanted a full kit of really quality products. You know, again, kind of OEM Honda slave cylinder and a really high quality aftermarket racing style master cylinder. So that's why I decided to go this route. So the very last thing that needs to be modified when doing this, and this would have to happen whether you used a Prelude master cylinder or this Tilton master cylinder, you're gonna have to do this either way, is the evap canister, the fuel evap canister that exists in the engine bay, right above. It sits right above kind of where the master cylinder is. So here's the factory Legend one. It's giant. This thing's huge. Doing some research, and also I have a JDM Legend And I realized as I was looking at the JDM Legend that it, from the factory, has a smaller canister. So I started doing some research. Here's the smaller canister. Started doing some research online. That's sort of a, kind of a height difference here. So I started doing some research online, and I found, by the way, this is the part number 80B57Q. I found that they used this canister on some early model Hondas. I think maybe in some of the Integra models, maybe like a Del Sol, something like that. Also, oddly enough, they used the same canister made by Honda on Triumph, a couple Triumph motorcycles. Odd. But the Triumph guys, they removed these things from their motorcycles. So I was actually able to find on eBay, you can find these listed. I would just search this part number. You can find these listed for, again, Integras and Triumph motorcycles. One thing to note as I was looking at these is I noticed that based on the application, even though the part number was the exact same, whether it was for like my JDM Legend or for an Integra or for the Triumph motorcycle, I noticed that the bottom here was a little bit different. If you notice on the Legend, it has this sort of sloped bottom, and this drain connection is down here on the side of it, and this drain connection actually turns in here. I noticed that on some of them it had a similar sloped bottom and a drain connection that turned. Some of them had a drain connection that was stationary, that could not be turned. The one on my JDM Legend was like that. It could not be turned, and the orientation that it had to be in made it so you couldn't really connect that drain line, or you have to extend the drain line, which, you know, probably isn't a problem. But what I found when looking on eBay is this one was listed for a Triumph, and this drain line turns and is connected right in the center down here. So I decided to go with this one. I believe, and again, I've got to prove it. I've got to install all this and make sure of it. But I believe that, let me back up, the connections on the top are exactly the same. Functionality wise is exactly the same. But anyways, I've got to verify it, but I believe that as you install this in the car, I believe it's going to sit just kind of right above the master cylinder. It's going to fit, whereas the OEM Legend one would hit. There's not enough room for it. So I think this is our solution, but again, I got to prove it. So next on my list to do is install all of this, and let's see if it works. Excuse me, let's see if it works. All right, so we're getting close to the moment of truth here. All the parts and pieces and components that I explained that you're going to need, I used and installed. So right here we've got the Tilton master cylinder bolted up to the Legend firewall. Again, in a coupe, this little inner fender well piece of metal here, it does not touch. There is a gap there. Does not touch right there. So that's good. I was able to use the OEM factory reservoir and the OEM factory, so I get better lighting. The OEM, you know, factory, that like braided or like covered, braided, whatever hose goes down from the reservoir and connects to the master cylinder. And then I'm using the stainless steel braided clutch line It goes, from that back, the back port, the bottom port, this one. So it goes down, has this nice 90-degree on it, which is helpful. It goes down. I routed this under the brake booster. And for now, I just have the line kind of tied up to these hard brake lines there, just so it doesn't rub on anything, or like it's not laying on anything hot. And the brake line goes down to the S2000 slave cylinder mounted up to the transmission. I'll take you down there in a minute. So all I really have left to do is to install the evap canister for the gas fumes. I have test fitted it, and it does slide down far enough to kind of lock in, so to speak, with this tab here. These lines will attach to it no problem. The only thing, these lines attach to it no problem. The only thing I'm going to have to do is maybe like extend this line a little bit, or like get a replacement one. This connects to the bottom of that canister. I guess it's like a drain line or something. I could make it work, but I think if it was just a little bit longer, again, I can either extend it or just replace it all the way back to where it tees off down here, and just get a longer line. I think it'll just work better that way, but not a big deal. Let's see if we go into the car. So while I was doing this project, I went ahead and ran a power cable through the firewall for a sound system. But you've got your clutch pedal here, and you can see how I used that thread adapter up here to connect into the factory clevis. Still need to put a cotter pin in there so it doesn't fall out. But this is really nice because you're kind of able to adjust the length, and it also helps you sort of adjust the preload here, like how much pedal movement there is before it actually starts moving fluid. So that's pretty nice. And then I'll take you down under the car. Get my light in here. All right. Hopefully you guys can see it, but there is the S2000 slave cylinder connected with that braided clutch line. I'm not touching anything, not touching this pre-cat on the Y pipe, and the bleeder screw doesn't touch anything either. So everything seems to fit, and when I push the clutch pedal, this slave cylinder actuates well. So I'll just have to test drive it to make sure it actuates fully and fully engages and disengages the clutch. But everything's installed, system's bled, so moment of truth. I'm gonna take it for a test drive. All right, I'm out on the maiden voyage, first test drive since doing the clutch system. Everything seems to work fantastically. The clutch pedal engagement point seems to be the same as it was. You know, everything's really smooth. The pedal feel is smooth. You know, it's hard to compare this to like a new OEM setup, but you know, compared to the used components that I had in here before, this feels really nice. The pedal feels great. It's nice and smooth action. So far, I'm very happy.